Good morning, everybody who's joining us for this webinar on practical insights into finance digitization. We're just going to wait a few minutes for the room to fill up a little bit more so we can chat about the weather. I'm from Joburg, but I'm currently in Cape Town, and it's been a gorgeous week. So it's really nice to be down there. Please, will you in the chat introduce yourselves, let us know where you're dialing in from, your company, and you can also tell us about your weather. We'll just give it a few more minutes for the room to fill up so that we can be talking to our best audience. People don't join webinars at the top of the hour anymore. So we've just got a few more minutes to go. It's Thursday, we're heading into the weekend very soon. It's been one hell of a week. I think we're all clawing our way to the 16th of December. I was hosting an event last night and people were saying, yeah, the 16th of November is just around the corner, but once you get there, January is just around the corner, which was a slightly alarming way of looking at it for me. But here we are. All right, I think that we are doing well. Thank you everyone who has joined us so far. I'm now going to kick off the official program. I see people's comments coming in the chat, so it's good to have all of you here joining us. Please, if you see the option on the drop-down menu, address your chats to everyone, not to the panelists and attendees, so that we can all interact with what we see there. I see we have someone called Chris joining us, Tesna, Drea, welcome. It's really good to have all of you there today. Let us jump into the official proceedings. Good morning and welcome. I'm Georgina Geddes, the Editor-in-Chief of CFO South Africa, and today I'm hosting this webinar, delivering practical insights into finance transformation. With more than 2/3 of CFOs investing in digital transformation within their organizations, technology is not seen as a major barrier when looking forward at hybrid working. Taking advantage of technologies like cloud and data analytics provides a mechanism to move the needle on the transformation journey. Today, I'm joined by Myrin Bock, a product manager for CaseWare Africa, who have actively driven cloud migration projects and he'll be talking about the insights gained from his clients' journeys. He's going to be sharing the practical insights, challenges, and considerations for optimizing the digital finance function and how it's possible to fast-track digital transformation objectives. We'll also be hearing from Deirdre de Carvalho, Director at Rand Corporate Consultants, who will unpack the corporate governance and secretarial services challenges faced by corporates from the viewpoint of a company secretary. And Michael Ndlovu, Finance Manager at Humnoto Group Holdings, will join the discussion to unpack some of the digitalization challenges within the finance function. So that's today's lineup. Before I jump into the conversation with Myrin, you'll see a poll popping up on your screens. Let me find the poll thingy. So the poll is, where are you in your digitalization journey? You are either considering it, but not underway as yet. You've taken the first tentative steps, you're well on your way, or you are a fully digitalized workplace. So you can please vote in that. It's always good to know exactly who in the room is doing what. In the meantime, Myrin, we'll get your results just now, but Myrin, first of all, could you please give us your credentials? How many years have you been doing cloud migration and digitalization projects, and how many have you done?
Oh, thanks, Georgina, and thank you to all the members for taking the time to join us. So as you mentioned, I'm the product manager and delivery lead at CaseWare Africa. And what that really means is I look after a portfolio of products and I look after how we deliver those to clients, which means that the migration form a big part of that role. I've always been in the software industry across different areas, and I'm currently busy focusing on a master's in digital business at WITS. So I've been in migration space for a while. I started PwC almost 17 years ago, and I was involved in the technology business back then. And we looked after the applications like, accounting, tax, audit applications. And then I decided to move to the other side of the table at CaseWare. And I've been involved in migration efforts ever since I started, especially with our cloud platform, which is about 8 or 9 years ago. And to date, we've done hundreds of migrations across different applications. I also get heavily involved in audit practices and corporate clients formulate their requirements, get a clear understanding of what the requirement is, and how do we put the solution together for them? Because it's not just let's migrate. There's a lot behind it. So yeah, that's a very brief kind of overview there. But yeah, I think we're very well versed in what to look out for and kind of how to guide.
Okay, fantastic. And can you let us know some of the biggest challenges and obstacles your clients have faced and how it is that you overcome them?
So I think, look, cloud adoption specifically has been very reactionary, right? And I think we saw that become very prominent during the lockdown period that we had and still continuing today. So we see organizations, realizing the need and benefits of migrating to cloud solutions. And I think it's important to understand that this is not a tick box exercise, because of fancy terms that's being thrown around in the technology space. The one thing I see is speed at which clients want to move. And what is important to understand is it's not a night change, right? It's not, we're going to implement a piece of software and there we go. The whole, I want to say digital journey, technology is but one piece of it, of that whole puzzle. And it's important to make sure that, when you embark on this kind of journey, that all the pieces are visible and we plan, out, taking into account everything. So some other challenges that I've seen or obstacles are legacy and very complex applications and infrastructure that clients are running. So there's a lot of disparate, systems that don't necessarily integrate with each other. And there's a lot of duplication of work that, companies want to kind of get rid of or eliminate with their digital transformation journey. And I think the discoverability of information in these systems have not been historically easy. Granted, you have, segregation of work that you want to maintain, but I think what is important is to realize that when you looking at this, you cannot focus on a specific area within finance. You need to focus on finance as a whole, because ultimately you want to bring all of this together to make sure that you've got a holistic solution that you can, really scale with, that can scale with your business. So, yeah, so just to sum it up, it's not a tick box exercise. It is not an overnight exercise. It's important to take into account the legacy infrastructure and the disparate systems. I think those are really what has caused a lot of roadblocks, because those items have never been considered.
Okay, and so my follow-on question from that is, what can be done to make the digitalization process more efficient and effective for everyone concerned?
Yeah, that's a great one. So first of all, understanding the need. And really looking at what is your business's, vision, like, or your like finance unit's vision 4-5 years out. So you want to understand what you want to achieve, work back and identify what we need to do in your, horizon 1, 2, and 3 to make sure that you're properly gearing to meeting that goal. And then I think partnering with the right service provider is very important, as opposed to just settling for applications, and software, which most of the time address very isolated needs in an organization. Secondly, I think, and this has caused a lot of, I think, failure in migration projects or digitalization objectives, and that is change management and training. So the one thing I think we forget is the buy-in from teams. So, your senior management generally would do some of the exploration, they see the benefits, they would make the decision. The problem is sometimes this happens in isolation. And ultimately, the teams that are going to be working in the new process or on the new software application, they are the ones that will make this investment either successful or not, right? If there's no efficiencies created or the experiences aren't great, you run the risk of real despondence from teams. And then I think the business process adjustment. So it's important to understand that everyone has a business process right now. And when you move into a more digital kind of way of working, that process could very well change. And chances are it definitely will change. And I think what's important there is to understand that your outcome that you want to achieve might be the same, but the in-between of getting from point A to that outcome might look very different. And I think that's where the importance of change management, the training, and the buy-in from the teams become quite vital.
Yeah, so it's a whole interlinking series of viability points, I guess.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now let's look at the results of our poll. I'm sharing the results on the screen. So what we have in the room is we have some people who are considering it, but nothing underway as yet. That's 29%. 50% have taken the first tentative step. So that's exciting. It's starting, but not yet well on our way. 13% are well on our way. And 8% are a fully digitalized workplace. Now, I don't know if that the low 8% is because people who are already fully digitalized wouldn't be attending this webinar, or do you feel that that's a fair reflection of a cross section of the market as it currently stands, Myrin?
I do think so. I think the biggest portion of the market have embarked on at least that first step. So understanding what it is, what does this process entail? They've not necessarily gone into actually executing on it, to get onto or to build a momentum on the journey. But there's definitely been a lot of exploration. And I think a big part of that is pressure, right? Pressure from to make sure that your compliance is in place. We're very heavily regulated. You need to make sure that you're not left behind. Mm. And that is a big part of a big consideration in this whole transformation journey.
And so what would your message be for companies or for finance departments that are still in the infancy of their digitization journey? So that biggest chunk of the poll.
Yeah. So I think for me, what's important is agility. Agility is key when you are looking at this journey that you want to go on. And the reason why I say that is, like I mentioned, a lot of organizations they're in that infancy stage, which means they're starting to explore what this means for their business, the impact in terms of the skill that they need, the talent that they need to recruit, the cost element, which is obviously big, regulatory elements. And a lot of the times that holds back the process. It's almost like we become crippled with anxiety, if I can, for lack of a better word. And we spend so much time analyzing as opposed to just taking small steps to get started. Because it's important, you don't know what you don't know, right? And the only way you'll start getting these additional insights is to see what's happening with your peers in the market. Like, talk to people, explore what is happening in your network and take these small steps, because that is what kind of unleashes the rest of the insights that you would need to successfully move forward. And the other thing is, I think, identify the need, make sure that you are clear on what your need is, where you want to be, and align this transformation to support the scaling of your organization. And the vision. It's a mistake that I see a lot of times is there's a disjoint between, in 5-10 years time, this is the organization we want to be. However, right now, all the the actions that we're taking, the focus that we have doesn't necessarily align to where we want to be. And that disjoint, it's a very costly exercise, number one. It creates deterrence from a kind of positive trajectory, to get to that outcome. So I think those two for me are very critical.
Okay. All right, that's fantastic. So now let's hear about it in action. Michael and Deirdre, I'd like to invite you to restart your video and join us on camera. And we can jump into the interactive panel discussion. I also wanted to just let everybody in the audience know that there will be a Q&A section at the end. So if you do have any questions for the panel, you're welcome to start posting them in the chat now, and we will get to them at the end of the session. I have already had one that I will get to a little later. But Michael, please can you tell us a little bit about your business and about how you started a finance digitalization project?
Thank you for that, Georgina. As I said, as I say now, we are almost digitalizing almost all the functions of the finance. Though because there's still some that feels that okay, that haven't got into it, the need for digitalization, but we have been into digitalization, especially with the cloud CaseWare for almost 3 years now. So I think I remember that there was a time when I didn't have, we're not using cloud text or cloud cloud system CaseWare. So we lost, I remember we lost most of the information. Like it becomes so difficult to restart doing new CaseWare file for each client. So you're losing money because now the money that because if you've got the CaseWare in your cloud for last year, you will take maybe at least 30% the work that you're supposed to do for the client. So now you rather spend time on doing value-adding services, and also for small business, it helps a lot because you save time and money. Yeah, so I think also in the other functions as well in the business, we're moving into cloud-based solutions. Remember we're moving from partner to Sage 200. So I think that's a good way because Sage 200 is a remote-based software. So the bookkeepers are able to capture invoices and bank statement on the cloud, which also is backed up. So we in our organization, we are almost there in terms of digitalization. I think that's all that I can say for now. Thank you.
Fantastic. And how big is your finance team?
We're composing of 7 people. We are 7 in the department.
And do you think that because it was a kind of quite small team, that it was easier to get everyone on board, or did you still have to, was there still quite a lot of persuading you had to do to get your team on board with the process?
Yeah, I think, it was, I think it's human nature, like change is always, people resist change, but now when they see benefit, I think we had one of the people that we still wanted to use the old system, but we managed to get everyone to use the new system.
And did you have any other obstacles or challenges on the path to digitalization? And you're quite far now down your journey.
Other parts, other parts is just our seniors and other people in the department, like CEO. So they find they always like the signed documentation and so forth. So also because they are older, generation. So going to digitalization, it will take time for them, but they are getting there. And I know one of my CEO, like normally the company, his PA, she assists her in terms of digitalization to send documents and receive. So yeah, so I think those are where the challenges get into digitalization for all the aspects of the organization.
Yeah, I mean, I think that changing the way things are done is always a challenge.
Yes.
And some people will resist it more than others.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
I'd be interested again in hearing from our audience. I'm going to launch another poll on the screen. Please go ahead and vote for us so that we can see what have been your biggest obstacles on your finance digitalization journey. Is it regulation? We are constrained by prescriptive or outdated regulations, financial investment. Our short-term business targets are misaligned with our organizational needs for longer-term transformation. Talent, attracting, recruiting, and retaining the right talent, or culture, a risk-conscious culture. So let's see how that plays out while we carry on. I'll get the results to you shortly. So Deirdre, I'd like to hear a little bit from you. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and where this fits in on the finance transformation picture?
Thank you. Our company provides company secretarial services to small, medium, and multinational companies. In effect, we can liken our services to an aftermarket service. So when a company is registered, we ensure that it remains compliant throughout the period of the company's lifespan, from inception to liquidation or deregistration of the company. We act within the ambit of the Companies Act, as well as what the requirements of CRPC are for the company.
Sorry about that, I was on mute. And can you tell us a little bit about where the services you offer are integrated with digitalization? How do you interact on that front?
So what I'd like to say is that CRPC have digitized most of their processes. So we've also had to digitize our process to fit in with CRPC. And in our company, we have had to digitize all the client's records so that they're available to the client when they require them to be, when they ask for documents.
Okay, and how easy is it for your clients to integrate with this new system? So what we've been talking about, the people issue.
So there's a lot of software on the market that assists us in providing clients with digitized documents, and our clients will then log onto the various programs in our program and download the documents that they need. Though it also requires some training, because even though that is available to them, they still pick up the phone and ask me to email documents through to them.
And
old habits
how do you fix that?
are hard.
Do you send them the documents, or do you show them again how to download them?
We send them the documents, because in most of the times it's also sitting on their intranet as well. But I think old habits die hard.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the thing that I think Myrin and Michael were telling us that they're often up against. So what differences have you seen in processes, or what have been the benefits of digitalization that you've seen?
Okay, so in terms of our work is primarily done with CRPC. So as I mentioned, CRPC have taken great strides to digitize their documents, and everything that we do with them now, probably 99% of the documents are submitted electronically via their platform, which we've moved away from the old style where we would have to post documents to them or deliver paper documents to their offices and wait for it to be posted back to us, or we'll go and collect it via from their offices. There's still some work that needs to be done at CRPC. The older type of documents prior to 2011 are still in hard copies. And if you need to access those copies, it's quite a mission to try and get your hands onto those copies. And sometimes it's necessary for court cases or for any transactions that you're doing. But I think the most important thing with CRPC and what would cement the process is API integration. If CRPC allowed API integration from the various secretarial programs that the providers work on, we could interface with CRPC and it would be a seamless process. Currently, we're still needing to print out documents from CRPC, sign manually or sign electronically, then scan in and upload. However, if there was API integration, it would do away with all of those manual processes as well.
Okay, fantastic. And in our prep call, you mentioned that this has been something that's affected smaller audit firms quite significantly. So can you just unpack that a little bit for us?
Okay, so I think also COVID also highlighted the unintended consequences for digitization. And this has also really affected the smaller auditing firms who are still working on paper-based systems and internal servers. So from a point of view of security, you know, we've now been subject to attacks of ransomware, theft of people's service, theft of company and government department services. So it's really, really important to digitize your paperwork, to digitize your documents. Your staff then could work from home remotely if we go into further levels of COVID, and you'd provide a seamless service to your client because you'd have everything at your fingertips. Also, if everything's in the cloud, you are secure from cyber attacks and from actually people breaking into your office and stealing files, documents, and servers.
Sounds like the way to go. So let us have a look at the latest poll on obstacles. Myrin, you worked with me on the content of this, so let's see. Does this again look like what you're used to hearing? So that the biggest obstacles on finance digitalization journeys are regulation. That's 11%, financial investment 44%. So people are really worried about the costs there. Talent 26%, and culture. There's a risk-conscious culture standing in the way.
Yeah, those two, so the financial investment and the talent, it definitely ties in or validates, you know, what's happening in almost all markets. So talent is an interesting one right now because it's such an agile space, right? So firstly, attracting the right skills is not just about, you know, I'm going to look at someone's CV, look at their degree and work experience, but it's the other way around now. So companies almost have to sell themselves to these candidates because candidates are looking for, I think, culture over and above everything else. Back in I think a couple of years ago, when you looked at, you know, recruitment, people moved companies because they wanted that stability. There's obviously a financial aspect, but that trend is really changing, where companies have to start selling themselves to candidates to get the right people. And I think the other thing that I've been seeing in that space is over and above the culture, a lot of, or big majority of talent, and I'm talking about the younger, you know, talent that we're trying to attract. For them, it's very important that the company's like vision and their mission and all of that aligns to these individuals and their personal kind of brands and visions and missions of what they want in their personal lives. And that's become quite a tricky conversation, right? And then the financial investment it's always an interesting one for me when I get into that conversation, because a lot of the times I think we look at this upfront, you know, cost, which can be very daunting. But I think what's important to take into account is, let's use technology, right, as an example, because technology is one kind of pillar of this digital journey. If you look at technology, it's important to look at not just the cost of, you know, what you're going to now have to pay for this application or license or whatever it is, but taking into account what is my current IT overhead, right? Because I need people to maintain servers, to make the backups, to ensure security is complied with. I need to purchase, you know, all this infrastructure. I need to pay for licenses in any case, you know, even like VPN is a cost to organizations. And I think once you start really unpacking all those elements and doing that comparison to what does this new, you know, technology suite look like, that's when you really can start doing a like-for-like comparison. because one of the, well, a couple of the big advantages of, cloud and hosted solutions is firstly, that overhead is removed, the maintenance is removed, and security, I think, is top of mind for most people. So that insurance that, your service provider or your hosting provider comply with their key industry standards, like ISO standards, your SOC standards, making sure that they are audited and penetration testing is done on a regular basis. Because that, a lot of the times, does not happen in corporates, right? We focus on the security aspects that we know, so firewalls and all these things, but I think it's become very clear that the corporate kind of setup and hosting has been penetrated over and over again. And that's why we see all these ransomware attacks and other malware attacks. The vectors are just becoming more and more. But yeah, I am very interested always when it comes to the finance discussion.
Okay, great. Speaking of finance, Michael, can we ask you to come back again? I wanted to ask you, I know that you said that you were very close to the end of your finance journey, of your finance digitalization journey, and I'd like to know what you still have to do, and whether there is actually an end in sight, or whether there will always just be new processes that need addressing. So, okay, so let's start with what have you still got left to do?
I think what we still need to do is to work on the procurement side to make sure that things that we procure, they are digitalized, and I mean also on the payment side that that system is kind of like digitalized. I think that's what is remaining on our side, like to make sure that everything that the invoice, when it comes in, the clients can also log into our system and place their orders, and also internally as well, we approve things internally, and we improve things. Sorry, on the system which I'm using, which is the Sage 200. I think that's what is left on the finance side in terms of getting every system digitalized, the approving and the authorization and the payment as well, which also, remember, we're buying in the system bit by bit, and once everyone gets into understanding, then all those systems will be fully digitalized. So yeah, so I think that's what I can say on my side. No, you need to buy into everybody, the board of directors, the management team, and everyone, so that they know what's the benefit of doing that. So, but I believe slowly but surely we'll get there.
You will, and so that's then my next question is there an endpoint? I mean, do you envision that you'll get to the end and you're done, or is there always going to be something new to digitalize?
Yeah, I think we'll get there, but like, remember, technology is always evolving, so I can't predict how we go. But like as I said before, like my other speaker did, remember, he said, okay, when things change to working from home again, if it's another fourth wave, then things might also change a little bit, and also it will maybe make people understand that digitalization is much more important when things change like that. So it's gonna, if it ever happens, then yeah. So every employer will see the necessary of changing digitalization.
Okay, that's great, Michael. Thank you so much for your insights. We're now heading into the Q&A section, and I have some additional questions for Myrin, as well as one that I've received, but please feel free to post any additional questions in the chat, It would be great to hear from you, and we can get them answered by this panel of experts you have in the room with you. So Myrin, the first thing is when I asked Michael that question about does the digitalization process ever come to an end? And I could see you shaking your head. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, once a complete process is done, what next? Because I can't believe it ever does, because there must be new things that happen all the time. But yeah, so talk a little bit around that for us, please.
100%. So there's no one input, right? It's never going to be finished, purely because of the speed at which technology specifically is changing and different trends are changing. I mean, like, if you take the work from home example, it's been, yeah, there's certain organizations that have been progressive for a couple of years, but the norm was I drive to work, I go sit at my desk and do, work that I can do from anywhere, and I drive back home, wasting anywhere between an hour and 3 hours in traffic, Whereas that's a perfect example of how it has changed in 18 months. Now we need to consider, well, what happens when my staff are working from home? We need to still ensure security. We need to ensure they've got access to all these things. So we can't foresee the future. You can only anticipate to a small degree of what could potentially change. And I think it's never going to end, but it is important to have a starting point. And that's why I mentioned earlier that agility is so important, because as much as you've got this 5-year plan, and this is not just in digital transformation, this is business as a whole. You've got a 5-year plan, and you need to be able to, adjust and pivot your organizational direction based on what's happening in the industry, in the markets. And I think it's the same with this journey. It's almost like asking, what is the end goal for your business? There is no end goal. We want to be there forever.
Growth. Okay, fantastic. So we had a question that popped up in the Q&A from Tesna Dreyer, who said, we are currently working on pastel evolution. The majority of the sales invoices are done automatically at month end. However, our expense and cash books and my reporting is still very labor intensive or a manual process. I am the only person in the finance department. How would you suggest I go about reviewing the partners going ahead to automate the accounting functionality? And then the same for implementation of automation and still having to meet the deadlines. So there's, yeah, consult away, please, Myrin.
So there's quite a number of pieces to that question, right? So firstly, one individual, the manual process. So a lot of the time I feel that we are very busy being busy, right? Because of all the day-to-day things that need to be ticked and need to be, processed. And I think, firstly, I would say take a step back and actually look at what this process entails. Number one, that's where you identify, well, I actually don't need this piece in the process, or I could, do this piece differently. Because only once you have that complete view can you really understand where my time is being wasted. Secondly, I think it's important to partner with the right, service provider. So, in the accounting and ERP space, there's a lot of service providers and there's great service providers, right? And it's just important to find the one that is going to support your organization in order to meet your objective. Like I mentioned earlier, we're not just talking about software anymore. Software on its own is null and void because it doesn't help in the bigger picture. So firstly, like I said, look at the process, make sure you're partnering with the right provider, and that level of manual intervention that you still have there, considering that you're doing it alone right now, I would say you probably don't need additional resources if you could digitize or digitalize that portion. And there's the cost saving again.
There we go. Myrin, I had a question for you around the discoverability of data, which you mentioned earlier on as one of the challenges. What I was wondering around that is, if I think of any organization that I've ever worked in, there are different ways of doing things, and you know that guy at that desk does things this way, and this guy has an Excel spreadsheet that he shares, but this one keeps track of it somewhere else. And I was just thinking about, and obviously, I mean, a lot of the discussion is about getting people to conform to the new system, but in any implementation, that part must be immense, where it's not about just applying the technology, but it's about identifying where the data comes from in the first place and getting people to give it up. So yeah, could you talk a little bit around that? Like how can a company in that way get digitalization ready, and how much of your input is spent on getting people to think right?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting point you mentioned, Georgina. So the one thing is, whenever I start a migration project, right, we determine the need. Actually, no. The first thing I do is I say, tell me what your process currently looks like. Let's draw it out, right? And we actually go into each one of these areas to say, well, you know, what does your centralized storage look like? And then you'll get answers like, well, we've got OneDrive, and then we've got people using Google Drive, and then some of it is on my machine, and then we've got a network drive, and it's all over the place. And the difficulty is you never know what the right version of a document or file is, and that causes wastage. So tell me what your current process is. Let's find the best centralized repository for going forward. And then once we've identified that, then we start looking at, well, you know, I mean, like HR information is very sensitive. Same with finance information. Then you start segregating it based on permissions and security. But I think the important thing is it should still be in one location.
And that's and for me, I mean, I'm just thinking about our documents and knowing which is the most up to date. That for me is the most terrifying thing to try and pinpoint. So you've got this bot going in and pulling stuff out, but the bot doesn't know that document got updated by Fred on his computer over the weekend. So yeah,
Georgina, I can give you a quick example of just it's something small that we did recently in our organization, right? So we found, sorry, with a certain set of supporting artifacts in the business, there was also that disparate location. So what we did is we created this centralized repository. We branded it perfectly. We laid it out in a way that when someone goes to that page, they know exactly, oh, I want to read or get information about product X, for example. And when they go into product X, it then says, well, you know, here's the sales material, here's the support material, here's the marketing artifacts. And we then took that and we said to the business, here it is, right? Here is what you need to find anything. And the response was incredible. And I thought to myself, well, you know, it's actually such a quick win. It didn't take a lot of effort. It didn't cost money. It's existing applications that we just reuse. And that's where you want to focus.
And that's where the magic is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we are winding to the end of our discussion. I'd like Deirdre and Michael just to come back on camera one last time. And I'd like to hear from each of you just what your message is for people who are at the start of their digitalization journeys, the opportunity to persuade or to give your best tip or best advice. So let's start with you, Deirdre.
I would say start with the most current data. And then as you progress and you have time, then start uploading the older type of data in terms of digitizing your documents. So it doesn't have to be an expensive exercise.
And is that an approach you've seen working in action?
Yes, and the other thing is naming conventions. It's very, very important to get your naming conventions right.
Yeah, and it's something you need to teach. And you need to drum it in 1,000 times. I know from naming conventions. Michael, your advice?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Chetnia. My advice is that, like as Deidre said, start somewhere. Yeah, because if you don't start, then the world is changing. So things are becoming technologically advanced. So you should start. So I don't see a need for you to wait. Like start with simple and then just find out, like, I mean, if you're using CaseWare, just find out which one is what can I afford for now. I know I've got a separate practice as well. I do pay on a monthly basis, so you can do that as well. I think just find out if you cannot pay once off for your fees for the cloud solutions, because they are very important. And I've seen it's better not to lose document than to lose everything at once, which means you're going to start again. And the turnover of stuff is always very high these days. So get your things onto cloud. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. So Myrin, your final overview, your final, make your case one last time.
Sure. I just want to talk to a point that Michael just mentioned, the subscription models. That is such an interesting model that I don't think we explore enough, because I think that's one of the key elements that helps with kind of making the decision moving forward, because that upfront, CapEx is almost taken out of the equation, and now you can better manage that cash flow. I think my final thoughts are, technology is not the answer to everything. Number one, technology is but a piece of this entire journey. I think finance is a very critical function. So, I mean, it's important to ensure that you're partnering with the rest of the business. So supporting functions like IT and the right service providers to help your organization grow. The investment, that's always a very daunting kind of topic. But like I mentioned, once you start analyzing, breaking apart, you'll be able to realize what the benefits will be in terms of efficiency. And then I think two things: always holistic picture in mind before you get into detail. And lastly, security is key. If you can't be persuaded on the security, or your security experts in your organization are not convinced, then chances are it's not meeting the right standards.
Okay, now that was sort of supposed to be the end result in the final wrap up, but I've just spotted two more questions that have come in the Q&A. So let me ask you from Benjamin Wealth, I think is the surname. Working for an investment holding company where group reporting is a key deliverable, having multiple offsite businesses and them having different reporting systems and IT networks, how do we digitize the consolidation of information reports to the group way of reporting? Ignoring sharing information via email. I'm thinking a web-based solution, access, security, everyone's buy-in, etc. So, I mean, that sounds like a perfect case study, Myrin. Do you have any insights there?
Yeah, and that's such a good question for me to beautifully position. So CaseWare Cloud, cloud-based platform, and that takes care of your security, your hosting, all that IT admin, right? Then you have CaseWare working papers, where you can import the information from all these accounting packages without having to export to Excel and the consolidation function in CaseWare pulls all of that up into your group report. And then in that consolidated or group report, you now have the option to do interim reporting, annual reporting. It's a file that can be used for your audits, and you literally will always have one version of an organization's financial statements or audit file. Everyone working on that, the information syncs across the different users, and any files or supporting documents, you chuck it in your engagement file and it's available to whoever you've given access to, right? So it's just It's a clean process. No email required. And sorry, Georgina, the last point is the collaboration, right? So with a cloud platform, you now have the option to add not only your staff internally, but add your contacts. So I can add my auditor as a contact and share the information with them that way, while still maintaining that limited access or however much you want to give them. But that's all within my control.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I can see that Megan from your company is saying that she'll be able to assist with software to assist the automation of financial statements. You can drop her an email. Her email address is there in the chat for anyone who wants to drop in. And then our last question now is from Mbolelo, who asks, what role do you think you can play in the local government space, considering the Auditor General report on municipalities failing to submit AFS or using consultants? So that's an interesting one. I mean, I'm sure that that's a market you'd love to tackle. So yeah, I mean, do you have any views on that?
Yeah, I can definitely. So we've been playing in the public sector space for a while now, right? We help with grant reporting, with PFMA, MFMA, all the public sector type reporting, IPSIS, for example. So we play very heavily in that space. We've got consultants that are skilled, within those reporting structures. And our teams go to, a municipality, for example, and really help them with this reporting, extraction of the information, importing, transforming the data, so you can get to, the right outcome for reporting. And I can say this with pride, I don't believe that any of the municipalities that we've been working with, that's running our software, I think all of them have received clean audits over the last couple of years, right? And it just goes to show how when you use the right tools for the right purpose, you'll get the right outcome.
Well, I think that we've come to our conclusion again with another good mic drop. So that's been great. Thank you very much to Deirdre and Michael and Myrin for sharing your thoughts with us today. I think it's been a very interesting webinar and a good affirmation for the value of digitalization. So I hope that the connections made here today will continue.
Gina, I think you went on mute there.
Share, screen share. Let me just try one more time to bring it to conclusion. So this is our next upcoming event. It's Future-Proof Finance. Is the accounting profession ready for disruption? We'll be hearing from SIPA, and that's on the 16th of November at 11 o'clock. You can register for this one by going to cfo.co.za/events. But thank you very, very much again to CaseWare for today's webinar. And it's been fantastic to be in the room with you and to field all your questions. So thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Yes.